Thanks for joining me. I had quite a number of requests to look at the Ruger number one. Most recently, a viewer by the name of Shooter asked me to review the Ruger number one, so I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and do that. So, Shooter, you're right, the Ruger number one's an amazing rifle. And before I begin the actual review, I wanted to say I invite anybody who's watching this video to pull up a picture of any of the black rifles that are available today. And as you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with black rifles that I can think of. On the other hand, the Ruger number one is a falling block single shot rifle. So it's not a semi-automatic. You never have to worry about round count really when you buy one or sell one. And most people who hunt with a single shot rifle and understand that that first shot is most of the time the most important shot. And why did I bring up the black rifles? Because of the contrast, the amazing difference between a Ruger number one and any black rifle. And here we are in 2018, and the number one is still being made. And although there are rumors for years that Ruger is going to discontinue them, they're still available. Having said that, I know quite a few people that are accumulating them. They just start buying them. And I remember this with other guns that were going to be discontinued that people thought would not be improved on by newer models. So they just kept buying the old model and storing them new in box as an investment. And a lot of that seems to be going on with the Ruger number one. I can tell you I have a few Ruger number ones. I've liked them since I was a kid. And the one on the table today is 7.62 by 39, but I have 405 Winchester, 9.3 by 74R, 9.3 by 62, 303 British, 405, 3030, and a few others. They're just an excellent firearm. And you know, when you create one of these channels, one of the things that they drill into you is the title of your video is all important. And I may make the title of this video the most elegant American-made firearm, and I believe that's appropriate. Here it is. This is the Ruger number one. This one is in 7.62 by 39. Somebody at Ruger told me they partly made this because they had some barrel blanks from another caliber that they were making. And so they thought they'd offer it in 7.62 by 39. So this rifle fires the same cartridge that the AK-47 does. And I almost put an AK-47 on the table and a couple of other black rifles just to create that contrast. So you'll find me sitting in a tree stand someplace with one of these, maybe not in this caliber. Probably in 30-06 or something like that, but it doesn't matter. They look about the same. And I could also be sitting in that tree stand with, you know, an AR-10 or what have you. But you know, you can draw your own conclusions. I like the single shots. I like the message they convey. I especially like them for younger shooters, people that are just learning to hunt and learn about firearms. And I think it's crucial to learn early on that that first shot is the most important shot. And most of the time, or quite often anyway, it's the only shot. Everything you do after that is hurried or involves wounding or game that's fleeing or what have you. Anyway, here's the Ruger number one. So the operation could not be simpler. I believe this is even simpler than a break action. You simply lower the block, and this gives you access to the chamber. You feed a cartridge. I've never heard of a falling block not working, and that's over a couple of decades. You raise the lever. On the Ruger, there's a little latch that catches on the trigger guard, so it snaps in place so that your lever doesn't fall down. And of course, I should probably mention that the Ruger number one is kind of a modern hybrid of the British single shots, the British falling blocks. Gibbs made beautiful falling blocks, and I have books on this, and you can look them up. Just punch in British falling blocks. Quite a few of them involve some fairly complex mechanisms and some unusual applications of flat springs, but there's no need to go into that. I think the Ruger number 1 captures all of the essences of the British falling blocks. It's a modern design, it's an investment casting, but nobody cares. It works perfectly well. Everything is fit and finished properly. Some of my collector friends have a lot more opinions than I do about things. They say the new ones aren't as good as the old ones. Maybe, but I don't see a difference, and I own both. And you'll see the fore end moving around because I took it off just to show you how this action is cocked. As you may or may not know, I was part of the designing of a falling block double rifle, and the first technical challenge you have is to fit everything that you need to fit into this small receiver, and that's one of the wonderful features of a falling block, and that is that the action is so small. And but that means there's an imperative to create a mechanism that allows a block to move up and down in the middle of a very small action. So you can't have any parts that traverse the whole action, or else obviously they either have to get out of the way, or they would be severed, or all kinds of things. So Ruger placed the spring, the hammer spring is here, and then the ejector mechanism is here. It's hidden under the fore end, and you can see he went to the trouble of designing it so that the fore end iron doesn't touch the barrel, so there's no effect on vibration. So when I took it off just for convenience sake. When you pop this back on, it doesn't infringe on any of the parts. Oh, the screw is getting in the way. And there's one thing you should be aware of. When you take this wood off, this little bushing will fall out of here, and that's where the screw goes. So get ready to catch it when it falls if you do that. I don't know why they don't just stake it in place so it can still turn, but that's the way it is. And you can see it working. So as I move it forward, you didn't see anything there. Now we're cocking the spring. So this feeds through the action, and there's a hammer in here, which is now in the back position. And then when we fire, the hammer flies forward. So they call it hammerless, but it's really a hidden hammer design. And as I said earlier, I've never heard of one failing. The extractor ejector is excellent. Some people fiddle around here and take this spring out or do other things just to get rid of the ejection, because I own some of the British falling blocks I was telling you about, and some of them don't have ejectors, and you actually get used to just tipping the rifle up and the brass falls out, and then you don't have that click and ping and brass flying, which isn't necessary. And you can see the hammer back here. Well, you can't see it once it's all closed up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's the Ruger number 1, and I thought this probably is safely America's most elegant rifle, and if hunters wanted to make a good impression, and if that's important, I don't think anybody's alarmed by these. It's a single shot rifle, tang safety. This groove is for ease of feeding and ease of ejection. Classic style stock. There's no cheap piece on this one. A lot of people go and have custom stocks made with cheap pieces, and I'll show you a couple of rifles that have that. But altogether, one of the best rifles ever made in America, and still available with a quarter rib and these machined surfaces or milled surfaces that allow the Ruger dovetails to fit, but you have a folding rear sight and you have a ramp sight on front on a barrel band, so it's never going to fall off. And you can change these front sights as well. In fact, I have a couple of custom ones that have the they look like the British night sights. It's kind of neat. They're white, Some people use ivory, some people put other things in there. I can't think of any flaws. By now they've all been worked out of the action. Very simple, very accurate in a lot of ways. If you only need one shot, which is high praise to the hunter, then you wouldn't really need anything else. You wouldn't need anything other than a number one. And as I always say to my collector and shooting and hunting friends, if you need something with a fast repeat shot, well, you know why you need repeat shots. So anyhow, that's the Ruger number one. And then I put on the table the Winchester 1885. This is a copy from Morocco. I guess it's marketed by Winchester. Yeah, it is. It's in 4570. So I mean, that's a fantastic and brilliant John Browning design. You all know them. Falling block again. It has a hammer, and you can actually tell a lot of the operation just by watching what happens here. And there's the hammer. I never had a problem with hammers. I don't know why everybody said they have to come up with a hammerless design, but they did. I actually prefer having a hammer. That doesn't necessarily mean that I prefer this over the Ruger. There are different features to the way the action is designed, which changes how the stock has to be. But anyway, this is the 1885, and I did this in advance. This one has 2 screws to retain it, and the 1885 hammer and everything else is cocked within the action, but this is the ejection mechanism here. And again, it's on a hanger so that nothing's touching the barrel, and that's consistent with modern ideas about harmonics. And this funny little rifle, I say funny just because it's so short, it shoots clover leaves at 100 yards. It's no problem at all. It's a surprising little gun. And I guess I could put a scope on it. It seems to be drilled and tapped, but I just used these sights. And it has the saddle ring carbine. I took off the ring just because it's constantly hitting the receiver, and I'm not in a saddle, so I don't need that. And then the other one I thought I'd show you is a variation of the number one. And this was made for a few years, and you know, my collector friends know all the dates, which I don't study. Number 3, so it's the number 1, but it has the lever, which is quite a lot like the 1885. You can see the similarity, and it creates more of a kind of a Western look. This one's in 223, so I do find myself shooting it a lot. And I had a scope on here, but it's hard to see the gun under these big scopes these days. And it has a barrel band, a little bit like the Ruger 44 or the 1022 for that matter. I guess Ruger went after that kind of M1 carbine look way back, and then it has kind of a Western aspect. And this looks like in a way, like a Model 94 carbine stock. So yeah, I mean, these are lovely. Too bad they discontinued them. And like I said, it's a number 1 dressed up as a Western rifle. Very practical. They made them in 30-40 Krag, 45-70, 223, 44 Magnum, maybe a couple others, I don't remember. I owned a 44, I owned a 30-40. This one's 223. Oh, 22 Hornet, I had one of those. They're all good. And all these number 1s and number 3s, well, for me anyway, I've never seen one that's not accurate. So that's that. And then I put this on the table just as a comparison. This is a Hagen single shot, which, if you watch my other videos, I consider the best falling block. There's just nothing that compares to this action. And I should have taken off the stock, but that would be a whole another video, and it would be complicated because the interrelationship of parts in this Hagen action is so extraordinary. It's actually hard to comment on it. And part of it, that was luck, and part of it was brilliance, but Martin would tell you himself. Anyway, this is in 30-06. Very small action. Looks a little bit like a heron action if you study those. Herren. You could Google that. No quarter rib, no provision for a scope. And Turkish walnut with a proper cheek piece. And I mean, these ones are crazy expensive. This particular one has the coin finish, which some people call French gray, and it was engraved by a guy by the name of Funk in Germany. And in the meantime, his engraving is kind of like any other fine art, just valuable in its own right, beautifully made, European style. So you have a few things to think about there. What would I buy? Well, it's easy. Just go buy the Ruger number 1, because I think they will discontinue these. I can't see this trend toward black rifles turning around anytime soon. They seem to sell quite a few limited editions to Lipsies and a few others, and they offer unique calibers. I missed the 44 Magnum just the other day. They sold out too quickly. But I don't think they're producing like thousands of them. And then one day, you know how Ruger works, just it's not on their catalog anymore. And then everybody will want them. Because like I said, this is an exceptional achievement. And Bill Ruger obviously was a man devoted to firearms and fine firearms, and that he had the courage to introduce a single shot to a market that from pioneer days was obsessed with firepower and lever actions and so on, and made a rifle so successful that it's still being made in 2018, long after he passed away. Pretty remarkable. Just get one of these in any caliber, it doesn't matter. New in box or use it. They're just great to have, and probably one of my favorite rifles of all time, and not even that expensive. So that is it. Please subscribe, and I kind of mean that. It's important to the channel that you subscribe. I didn't realize how important it was, just because I don't study YouTube. And then if you can join me on Patreon, that'd be great too. And I have quite a few other videos planned, and I hope you're here to join me for them. Thanks again. You have a good day.